All right, so your ABB IRB 120, that is the robot that we are using for this class. All right, now that is only part of the game. All right, the other part of the game, or the system per se, is the compact controller, which is located below the table, or up on my screen. You guys can see what it looks like. All right. Um, so if we look on here, we've got kind of four main sections. Really? You're not gonna let me draw? Oh, that's annoying. You come up, but you don't let me draw. Where'd my mouse go? That's gonna be a great recording. All right. Well, I guess I can't draw, so I'm just gonna have to hopefully point to that, guys. All right. So in the dead center of this is all of our I/O area. All right. We can actually get extra add-on modules installed. They do have a serial module located right to the left of that S on the robots. There's a little serial module there with two DB9 connectors. We don't have that. All right. That is something I'd like to add at some point because it'd be a great way to interface to other things. But currently, we don't have that option. In the back, if you actually look kind of behind the words, or you guys can look at your actual controllers. So kind of right here in the center, you'll see there's a whole bunch of freaking Ethernet ports. There's actually some USB ports down at the bottom. So that's all kind of crazy stuff going on. But we'll be hooking laptops up to these at some point. So you will actually be plugging in an Ethernet cable into there at some point. On the left-hand side, those green connectors, those are our inputs and our outputs. All right. We have one of those green connectors wired up to the yellow, banana plugs on the top. Those are all inputs. We have one of those connectors wired up to the blue. Those are all outputs. And then we have a power and a ground wire coming up as well. So we've got a lot going on there. On the left-hand side, at the very bottom, we have our main power in on the controller. So down here in the bottom left-hand corner, that's our main power in. And then just to the right of that is that main power switch. That power switch is a pain in the butt to turn. All right. You're like looking at it, you're like, it's not going to be that bad. Then you actually try and turn it, and it's like almost like a breaker switch. Like, it's just hard to turn. So if you're turning it, don't be surprised when it's hard. Also, don't be surprised when it's like funk when you do get it to turn, because like once you finally pass that like tripping point, it just like kind of slams on you a little bit. So I do like to point that out. So right now we are in the on position, and then above that we have three connectors in this image. I don't know. Do we have 3 or 4 in our robots? One of them is the teach pendant. I believe that's this XS4 here at the top. That's the orange cable. And then we have the big hunkin' square rectangular one. And we've got another circular one. And I don't know if there's one more on there or not. But anyway, those all go to the robot other than the orange one. That's the teach pendant. So I just wanted to point that out to you. On the right here, we have 3 different parts. We've got a key switch, which if you look at it closely, we've got a little picture of a hand and then a picture of, I've got no clue what it is, but it's kind of like a tornado-y type thing to me. That is our auto manual switch. So if you want the robot to automatically do things and run according to the program and everything, you can put it in that mode. However, for today, the first 2 classes, we're going to be doing everything in manual mode. So you're going to have that key in the little hand position, all right, which I think is where it already is. But just in case it's not, that's where we want it. Turn to the right. We also have an e-stop button, which is this big red one. All right. There's one more e-stop, which is located on the teach pendant itself. All right. So we'll come back to that one. And then we also have this little white button that has a picture to me of a little motor on it, a little like brushed motor to me. That stands one of 2 purposes. If we are in manual mode, it enables the motors, and if we're in auto mode, I think it also kind of basically enables the motor, but it does it kind of 2 different things, which you'll see in a minute. So I just kind of like to point that out. If that button is, I believe it's flashing right now, once you've put it in manual mode, you have to press that white button once to allow the motors to actually move. So if it's flashing, you can go ahead and just push it right now, and that will take care of things. All right. So that is overall your the blue button. The blue button, that's a good one. That's right here under this key. It's not actually in this picture. That is a brake release button. All right, so right now, the motors are in whatever position they're in, and they are kind of stuck there. You could push on them, you can pull on them, but they're not actually using any power because there's a mechanical brake in there that is actually holding all those joints in place. That blue button will disable that brake. So the robot basically goes limp. All right. We shouldn't have a need for that as long as you guys are careful. If you're not careful and you get your robot jammed into the table or something, then you'll probably need to press that button. All right, so it's definitely a two-person job. So one person's going to be like holding the robot, the other one's going to press the button to release the brakes, and the other person will then lift the robot kind of up. Doesn't have to be far, you know, 1/8 of an inch just to get it unstuck. Then they can let go of that button, and then you can move it with the teach pendant again. But yes, that is a brake release button. It is under a little plastic cover, so you can't accidentally press it. But you're right, that is not on this picture, but it is right here behind this key. Next, we have our teach pendant. All right, and let's see if I can find what I want. Pull up this. There we go. This is roughly what your teach pendant looks like. Now, this is missing a few things, which are hard to show in a 2D picture, and I'm having a hard time finding what I want visually, which is, in the long run, okay. But anyway, so you have your teach pendant here. Now, if you actually go ahead and pick it up, we'll see, yeah, like kind of just pulled off that. There you go. You'll see you got a nice little handle on the right-hand side. All right. Now, I believe these are meant to be held with your left hand. So kind of put your left hand from the wire through that. Yeah, there, Heidi's got it. All right. And the reason it's supposed to be held with your left hand is right there under your fingertips, then there's actually a button. So if you press that with your fingers just a little bit, you feel there's a little button right there. All right. There are 2 stages to that button. There's a light press and a hard press. Go ahead and you can try that. Light press. Now hard press. Yeah, all right. So the light press is another safety mechanism for why you're manually jogging the thing. It's a dead man switch. You have to be holding that in lightly anytime you're manually moving the robot around. It gets very annoying, but it's a safety mechanism, so deal with it. The hard press is the, oh crap, something wrong is going on. And that's there so that way when you're just like holding the button, let the robot in manual mode, or you hit play on the button, and the robot's doing its thing, and you're not paying super attention, it's very easy for you to quick squeeze that if you need to stop the robot. So that's basically like another e-stop that you can press. All right. So that is the hold to run button. So light press, hard press there. And as you're pressing that lightly, you hear a relay contacting inside the thing. I think that's going to basically allow the brakes on the robot to actually be disengaged. So I like to point that out. All right, now on your teach pendant, you guys are all at this screen, I believe, basically. So you guys have errors. That's right. So if we actually read the error, it says, "Warning: your robot has not been had any maintenance done in the last 300 and some odd days." Oh no! All right. In the real world, this may be something to actually worry about. For our purposes of education, these robots get maybe 40 hours a year put on them. 15 weeks. We're only going to spend like 7 weeks on them, 3 hours a week. That's like 21 hours. So 40 is even probably way overkill. All right, so compare that to an industrial robot that's running 24/7. It gets 40 hours put on it in 2 days. All right, so we don't have any problems with maintenance. These things will do. We can basically just ignore that message now, or acknowledge it. Now, having said that, anytime you do see error messages on that screen, read them. All right, don't just ignore them. They are there for a reason. So, yes, we all get in the habit of just going, yeah, I know what that says. And you hit ignore, and then all of a sudden it pops back up again and again and again. And you read it, and you're like, oh, it's not actually saying what I thought it was. All right, so actually read those error messages. Like the warning lights. Yep, yeah, just like the warning lights on your vehicles. All right, so now you guys should be at roughly a point in this. What? No, just it's a touch screen to acknowledge. There's an acknowledge button at the bottom. All right. Now, if you guys have already pressed your white buttons, if you have not, go ahead and please press those white buttons right by the key. Yep, push it. All right. Yep. Cool. All right, so nothing's happening. That's fine. All right, so for me, pressing that white button is like pressing the enable button right here. All right. I also, in my software, I have this operating mode over here. I have to go to manual first. And now I can come back to my teach pendant. And now I can actually enable my robot. So that's like you guys having pressed that little white button there. All right. So on this screen, we've got a few things. Obviously, on the far right, we've got real buttons. I like real buttons. All right. So we've got the top 4 here. That's 1 line, 2 line, 3 line, 4 line. Those are all programmable, so you can actually tell them what to do. We will be doing that in a little bit. We've got our joystick. All right. And without pressing any things, you can move the joystick around. Nothing's going to happen. But you can push it up, you can push it down, you can push it left, you can push it right, you can go in any angle direction at the same time. You can also twist it like a knob. All right, so we have 3 axes of motion. Up and down, left and right, twisting like a knob. All right. So you've got that. At the bottom, we've got a play, next command, first command, stop button. So that's what's going on there. Over here on the left, we've got which type of motion we're going to use. That top gray button, that is our motion, or actually both these gray buttons are motion. The top one goes from X, Y, Z, so if you actually click that one once, you'll see down here in the bottom corner, this changes. So mine's now in X, Y, Z mode. It's just, it looks like a little X, Y, Z coordinate system. And if you press it again, I get a little circular motion. That's reorient. So again, that's going to keep the end effector in the exact center spot, and it's going to reorient around that. So in theory, your XYZ coordinate isn't changing, but how the robot is accessing that XYZ is changing. The button right below that is our access control. So if you press that, you'll see 1/3. If you press it again, you'll see 4/6. So that's telling you if you're in 1/3, that means the joysticks will move joint 1, 2, and 3. If you're in 4 through 6, it'll move 4, 5, and 6. All right. Just a reminder. I'm moving this again. There we go. Joint 1 is down here at the base. All right, so that's joint 1. It actually rotates left and right. Joint 2 is right here. That's up and down. Joint 3 is at the top of that, right there. Joint 4 is rotation. Joint 5 is this. And then joint 6 is right here at the end, actually rotating again. All right, so those are all of our different joints. All right, so let us go ahead and move the robot. So the top left-hand corner is the little 3 lines and a little arrow pointing down. That is like your start menu. All right. We're going to go ahead and click the top that button. Again, I suggest using like a fingernail or something, just because these are resistive screens, not capacitive. Fingernails to me work great, like the back of a pen, something hard but pointy but not too sharp. You're going to scratch my screens. All right, that's the name of the game here. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and select the jogging screen. This screen you guys will be using very often this semester. All right, so here you can see we've got our mechanical unit of our robot 1, so that's the one that we're working with right now. And we're going to go ahead into motion mode, and we're going to go to linear. Let's start there. All right, you might have already been in there, which is great, but if not, motion mode and go ahead and with linear. All right. Now we have a coordinate system. Right now it's set to base or world or tool or work object. I have no clue what yours is set to. Mine was set to base right off the bat. All right. These are all things that we can somewhat define. All right. So like base and world, I think are pretty close to each other. I'm not actually sure what the exact difference is, but they should be pretty close to each other. Tool, world, and work object and base, though, are completely different. So let's assume base is assuming that the base of the robot is, the center of it is 0, 0, 0. All right? And X, I forget which axis is X and Y and Z right now, so we're going to find that out soon. But anyway, so that's, you're going to push it one way. Z is up and down. I know that one. All right. I believe if you're holding the remote looking at the robot, I think left makes the robot go left, right makes it go right, Y makes it go forward and back, those types of things. But tool actually does it based on the end effector. So if your robot, so like mine, if we were doing it based off of this tool object right here, you can see my X and my Y and my Z. So it's still basically, Control Shift, there we go. It's still basically the world, except for we're doing it based off this point. If I did it off this one, though, that tool work object, that means that, let me go this way, the X, Y, and Z is now at freaking angles. So you can see how, like, which coordinate system you have selected is very important. Work objects you can define. You can say, this is my work object. And the nice thing about that is, again, if we have 3 workplaces or whatever, 3 systems we load on a CNC machine, you can say, work object 1 is vice 1, 2 is vice 2, 3 is vice 3. And all you have to say is load a piece into work object 1, location 1. All right, so all you have to do is change the work object when you're loading the piece. You don't actually have to change the position because you've said my work object's now 0, 0 is this point on the vice. So you can tell it to do the exact same code with the same locations. All you've changed is the work object that you're referencing now. So it's really important to get your work objects. One of the things we're going to do is set up work objects. Not today, but we will do that because right now, again, you're 0, you're forward and back. You have to like stand at an angle to your, in line with your robot, which is at an angle to your table to make forward, back, left, and right make actually sense. So yeah, so that is our coordinate system. So I'm going to go with base for right now. So that's what I'd highly suggest for you guys. Your tool, you probably you guys actually might have multiple tools. We are going to reset everything today at some point. But you know, tool 0 is basically saying you don't have anything attached to the robot. So right at the edge of that black part of the robot, right between the bat and the aluminum, that is your tool. So that is in here, that's this magical point right in there. All right. So it's fine. Our work object, again, we haven't defined any yet. Joystick lock, which is good. So if you really only want to move in one axis, make sure you disable the other axes because even like a slight variation to the left is going to move you in that way. Maybe not be much, but it may be enough to annoy the living daylights out of you. So I highly suggest if you are actually really only want to move in one direction, lock the other two. All right. So all you have to do is come in here and say lock horizontal and vertical. You can actually lock all three, you know, whatever combination is that you want. And then the last really important one is increment. All right. So this is when you move the joystick all the way to the right. Basically, like how fast, what's the max speed of the robot? That's really what this is telling as far as I'm concerned. So if you're in none or large mode, your robot's going to move very quickly. If you go to small, it's going to move in like tenths of an inch or millimeter. I think we're in millimeters. Yeah, we're in millimeters. Like it moves really freaking slow. So slow that it's really annoying. All right. And that's what this little 3-dot button right here does. If you go ahead and press that, you'll see my increment went from none to small. So that's a really handy one to have. So when you're like, I need to move fast, you can press that, show it to none, which also in the bottom right hand of your screen, you can see that our increment is. So right now it's got the circle 3 dots with a little like cancel sign. That's saying we're in none. If I press it once, I go to the 4 small dots, which tells me I'm in small mode. So you don't actually have to be in the jogging screen to see your increment mode. You can just look at it there. But yeah, like the robot will move really freaking slow. So if I go ahead and just do that right now, look at the millimeters go. 1 millimeter, there we go. That was slow mode. Let me go to none. See the difference? Like, huge. The one looks like it's not even moving, and the other it's like, yeah, okay, I can actually see it changing. Pretty big one. And medium and large. Yeah, you get to pick which speed it is that you want, is really what it comes down to. All right. So that is completely up to you guys, is what it really comes down to. So you get to pick your speeds when you're dealing with things. If you crash your robot, I might as well just say when you crash your robot, because it's gonna happen. All right. The best system is to go to small increments when you're trying to unstick it. When you don't, it tries to like move fast, but there's too much resistance on the joints because it's crashed that it's like, oh no, I can't move, and then it's like locks you out again. But if you go down the small movement, you can normally get yourself out of being stuck. All right. It's a little bit annoying. It's one of those like little tricks that you learn over time that I've learned. I used to like every time a student would crash, I'd be like, all right, hit the blue button, pick the robot up. Or now I'm like, try small motion and try to like Z straight up type of thing. And that normally will get you out of it. So that is our jogging screen. So why don't you guys go ahead and take a moment and try to jog your robot around, and we'll start a new video up in a few minutes.